Okay, let's do this.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Cut to the Chase by Cempaka Cut, where every week we talk about something very nice to us and very interesting to us, and hopefully it's very interesting to you. So this week, and on our last episode of this season, we're going to be talking about something that's really interesting and really cool, and I think about it a lot right now, especially at the point I'm in my life, and so do many of my other friends in junior 1 or in junior 2 or about to graduate soon, and that's life after school. You know, what is it going to be like? Am I going to go to college? Am I going to work? Or all these different things. And so we thought we'd be talking about that today with someone very special. And he's the alumni of Cempaka Cut in 2015, prefect of his time, wall climbing captain too, and he has done a lot of theater in our school, a lot of musicals in our school, Legally Blonde and a few others. But yeah, okay, welcoming Bryan Tiang. Hi.
Nice to meet you guys.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty great actually. I mean, better than most people in this difficult time. So, as long as your status quo, things are considered to be pretty good.
What about you, Umar? How have you been?
I think life is great and we should all enjoy it as much as we can.
Yes, definitely. That is the point of life. Okay, anyways, yeah, let's begin. So, first of all, how did you feel when you just got out of school, when you just got out of, let's say, Cempaka? When you graduated.
Okay, so I remember graduating from Cempaka, and it was definitely a very sad moment because everything that you've known for the past 5 years has finally came to an end. Because for those 5 years in Cempaka, that's been your life, that's been your routine, right? Most students would come in, start school at 7 plus, right? The school ends at 3:30, but most of the times you have extracurricular activities until 5, and then when you get home you study. So it was a non-stop thing for those 5 years, and finally when that comes to an end, you start to question yourself, what comes next, right? So it's just like, wait a minute, I'm not prepared for this. So of course it was sad, and also of course you're gonna be leaving behind the people that you've known for the past 5 years, people that meant a lot to you. And it was that turning point where some of them might go to some local universities, some might end up going overseas. So you have no idea whether your paths will ever cross again in the future. So there was always that uncertainty. So it was definitely very sad, but it's also, in hindsight, a very beautiful experience because you can't stop growth. And right now you look back where everyone is and you just can't help but feel happy for them.
That does really sound very beautiful. And yeah, it's very scary actually. I don't know what's gonna happen after we graduate. Right now, I don't know, but especially for me. But yeah, I think about this a lot too, and it's whether when I graduate, what do I want to do? Do I want to do something sustainable, or do I want to go on and chase my dreams? But what do you think
about?
Yeah.
Okay, when you mean sustainability, I think you're meaning something conservative, something safe, right? And if you're talking about that, you're talking in a career sort of context, right? As in a job sort of context. Okay. So that's the age-old question, right? Is there an answer whether you should go chase your dreams and do what you like as opposed to what you know will be safe in terms of a job? Is there really an answer? No. There's no fixed answer because no one can make a decision for you. That's a decision that you've got to make on your own. But I have definitely put some thought into it and experienced a little bit here and there. So when it comes to if you want to pursue something that you like, the first you got to have some prerequisites. The number one is you got to know yourself, and in that sense, knowing what's your expectation when you say that you want to pursue something you like. What's your expectation? Is it going to be easy? It's not. It's going to be very, very difficult because not only are you challenging yourself, but you're also challenging the people around you who don't think that you might be able to make it. So that's a really hard expectation where you're gonna have to push through. Second thing is knowing yourself, which is that really what you want? because sometimes people end up pursuing something they like, and then that flame sort of dies out a few years later, and then you're stuck in a rut where you're like, I have no idea what to do in my life anymore. Okay? And number 3, do you have a clear perspective on the roadmap, on of what it takes to go and pursue that thing you like? Because it's the grass is always green on the other side. Things always look easier until you start walking that path. So if you really are considering pursuing something that you like, make sure that you have a clear, realistic picture on what that journey is going to be like, as opposed to what you think it's going to be like. Okay? But then again, another point of view, which is going for the conservative route is something that I think will be much more popular right now, especially considering this pandemic, where a lot of people who are pursuing what they like end up losing their jobs. And it's not because their jobs are any less important. Every job is important. But when it comes to prioritization of what's important, then people are going to choose jobs that are more, I don't want to say the word essential because that's a very sensitive word, because it also denotes that other jobs are not essential. I think the right word would be a need. The need for society to run, such as jobs like food, F&B, industries such as medicine. Those are real necessities for society to run as a whole. So what I'm trying to say is, given this pandemic, those kind of jobs will be much more popular and will last longer compared to jobs that, like for example, the industry like the arts. So that's something you also got to take into consideration, which is, what is your family situation like? Can you afford going into a job that you like? Because it will take a few years for you to start making some profits for it to become a sustainable thing. If your family is not in that position to take that kind of risk, then maybe you should, not to say no, but hold it off for a while. So that's just my 2 cents.
Hold it off for a while until you sort of make some profit, then you can go on and do what you like, right?
Yeah, so what we would like to call that is like an emergency fund. So make sure that you're able, based on your savings right now and based on the current economic condition, is your family able to sustain for X number of months without a job? And if you can achieve that, then yes, you can probably use that to take a risk to go and pursue something that you like. But then again, this is something you got to be very sure, because the last thing you want to do is go pursue and then, burn a hole in your wallet and then putting your family in a worse situation than you had previously before you started out.
Yeah. How has your experience been on that, actually?
What about working?
Yeah, about working, your career paths, everything.
So starting to work was a very scary thing for me, because it really challenged everything that I was taught when I was in university. So a very simple analogy I like to tell people is that when you're in university, you're taught a subject and then given a test later, right? But at work, it's the opposite. Sometimes you're given the test first and then the lesson comes later. And the catch is, regardless of you having not learned the lesson yet, you have to succeed in the test. You have to find some way to get that test done, and failure is not an option. So then you will have to employ your resourcefulness, your ability to think smart, to be able to push through this whole situation in order to get the job done. So all in all, that's a very brief summary on the culture shock I had to go through when I first started working.
Yeah, definitely. We have yet to face that as students ourselves, me and Umar.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's kind of
Get ready for it. Yeah, it's scary, but the thought of it is even more scary than what it realistically is. Because everyone's not gonna have the same experience. Sometimes you might go to a job where your boss is great. Sometimes you might go to a job where your boss is nasty, or a certain work environment is more demanding than the other. So everyone's experience is gonna be different. But I can definitely guarantee that the way you work back when you were studying is going to be very different when you come to work, because when you work, not only are you expected to deliver, but you're also bestowed something called responsibility. And your responsibility and your ability to get the job done is a reflection on you as a person, on what you can do as a professional.
Yeah, so we're talking about work right now, but what about university? How was that for you when you first came in? What did you learn, and what was the most surprising thing about it?
Okay, I think because our audience is going to be Cempaka students, right? This would be something you guys would be able to relate to more easily. So for me, having come from Cempaka, right? Cempaka is, I mean, in a no filter, realistic, down to earth context, right? Cempaka is filled with people who come from a middle to upper class sort of range. So usually finances and choices is a luxury to us and we take it for granted. But when I went to university, which I did in Taylor's University, I'm paired with people who come from a different class. Some will come from just a middle class, some to lower middle class. Some people come from families that are just making ends meet. So it's a very, very interesting experience because you suddenly mix into that whole group. And the way that you operate, the way that you talk to a person back in Cempaka will be very different from how you spoke to a person in university. Like, for example, it might be a small thing, but I remember I was just, some dude saw me drive a Honda. And then he, just by that, he was like telling me that, oh, I'm pretty well off. And I'm just like, isn't that pretty normal? And apparently it's not. Some people can't afford those kind of that brand. Some of them stick to other brands like Perodua and Proton, and that's because of their family situation. And that was just one example, but it was just enough to really broaden my whole experience, understanding on the culture and the people in university. In terms of the study life, it's definitely very different as well. Some universities might have something called classes, traditional classes like what you have in high school, but another thing that will be introduced to you is something called lectures. So lectures is where you have a huge group of students, for example, like maybe 40 or 60, and then there will be a lecturer. We don't call them a teacher, we call them a lecturer because their job is to come in and lecture. They will do a presentation. The communication is very one way, which is the lecturer talking to us instead of us talking to a lecturer. And our job is to take notes, understand as much as possible, and then later during the tutorials, ask questions, do the exercises that are given. So it's a different sort of setup compared to a traditional class where you have a smaller group of students and you have a more closer connection with the teacher. One last thing I should probably also mention about university life is that depending on the course you take, the life there will be quite different in the sense where, you know how in Cempaka in high school you have classes from like, I can't remember what, 8 o'clock until like 3:30 with 2 breaks in the center. So it's like back to back, right? But in university, it's quite different, especially the one I went through. Our year is broken into semesters like what you guys have, but you are not forced subjects. For me, I had the option of picking my subjects out of a pool of subjects. And then each subject came with its own schedule, and I had to somehow mix and match subjects to create my own schedule, my own timetable, and that would be my timetable for that semester. And whether the classes are back to back will be my decision, but what that allows you to do is to choose how, not only what subjects you want to take, but how much time you're going to have in between each class. For example, I would have a class like, for example, 8 till 9, and then I'll have a break, like an hour break before I start my next class, if the schedule so permits. And that one semester, instead of taking like 9 subjects like you do in high school, I took like only 4 subjects. Because although the number of subjects was less, the learning experience per subject is much deeper. In university, they emphasize a lot more on independent study. So if a teacher does not emphasize on something or does not push you to study, so that's a university life all in all.
So it's very different from what we've normally experienced, and it's just a different world altogether.
It's different. I like to think of university as sort of an in-between between being a teenager and being a young adult. The system doesn't treat you as much as a teenager, like an adolescent. They treat you a bit more like you are a mature. There's more freedom, but as well there is more responsibility and consequences with the actions or decisions you make.
It's important that every part of the process of eventually getting to your end, it will be important. It's obviously been some time, quite a number of years since you've left Cempaka, but you're still involved in the process. I mean, you've been doing like Dames and Dimes and coming back to the Cempaka community. So how does it feel that, you know, you're coming back and contributing and just you're able to like draw comparisons between how it was like and how's it now? How does it feel to do that?
It definitely feels different because although the place is the same, it's the same school, the same venue, the same walls, the same halls, it's different because the people that I grew up with aren't there anymore. So are the teachers that I grew up with, had those classes with, they aren't there anymore. And so when I walk through the school, I'm just gonna get real sappy, all I see are memories. And that's a sad and beautiful thing, because you only feel this nostalgia because you had such a great time. You had something special. But having said that, that doesn't mean that there is no space for new memories. Coming back and doing new stuff, you create new memories with that. The people I know are out there doing what they're meant to do. I do believe that everyone has their own time. Our paths cross for a reason, and they cross so that we can leave an impact in each other's lives.
That's making me want to cry, you know. It's making me tear up right now.
Everything will work out in the end. Live in the moment. I think that's what I can tell for anyone who's worrying too much about the future. You can plan for the future, but also plan for changes in your plan, because what you have set out for yourself might not happen. Who knew this coronavirus thing would have happened? Who knows, maybe the economy would change, the demand would change. You yourself as a person would change because, you know, you start to like different things and your passion changes. I think it's great for a person to have a plan, but don't be disheartened when those plan changes. I think what's important is that we live in the moment and enjoy every second that we have.
Yeah. We can't control everything, so we should be willing to adapt if necessary.
You know, you talk about how memories pass by you and a lot of things. So what's the thing you missed about school the most?
What I miss about the most is the people. Really is the people, because what gives the whole experience meaning is the people that you've done it with, the people you laugh with, the people you go through with. And it's really hard after they leave to even bring them back together in one single spot. So cherish every moment you have right now. You have no idea when you're going to have this opportunity again.
Right now, what advice do you have, you know, for everyone out there that's watching right now? There are probably people like me and Umar who's gonna graduate soon or is gonna graduate in a few years. So what advice do you have?
Life's got its ups and downs, and I know that's a very general thing to say, but I really do mean it when I say that no matter what you go through, really try to enjoy as much as possible, even the bad times. Because the bad times will go away, and the bad times teach you something that you will need to become a better person, to become a stronger person. So don't see bad times as something that sets you backwards. Everything teaches you something about life, about yourself, that makes you become a better person. It's that growth mindset that if you have, you will be unstoppable. And no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at you, you're going to be okay and you're going to be happy.
I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Thank you for that, Bryan. Umar, do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you for agreeing to do this with us and sharing your insights with the rest of the world. I think they've enjoyed your ideas and your experiences. I think it's one that will stay with them for quite a while as they navigate this long game of life.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on this show.
So once again, thank you so much, Bryan, for coming on. Thank you, Umar, for co-hosting with me. And thank you to all the editors that will be editing this, which we will put down in the description below. And so yeah, follow Bryan Tiang on Instagram. We'll put a link down below. And thank you so much, guys, for watching for the past 6 episodes of this whole season. The next time we do this, we'll be together, face-to-face. Me, Umar, and maybe someone else. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Leave some feedback. Goodbye. And cut.